Welcome everyone to the Spanish Fork Rotary Club. We have William Boardman visiting with us with his wife Lisa here today. William Boardman has been a Toastmaster since 2014. He is a member of two Toastmasters Club, Timpanogos Toastmasters in Orem and Utah Valley Toastmasters in Spanish Fork. This speech is a project from the Presentation Mastery Pathway, and the title of his speech is Fundamental Truths. Please welcome William Boardman.
People may not remember the words that you say, but they will never forget the way that you make them feel. All of us can have a positive impact on the people we encounter by knowing three fundamental truths. The first fundamental truth, am I off the screen? First fundamental truth is we all want to know that we're wanted. The second fundamental truth, we all want to know that our contribution is valued. And the third fundamental truth, we all want to be inspired. Now, how do we know that we all want to be wanted? Sometimes it's in the words that we say. Birds of a feather flock together. Hey, he's part of my tribe. Hey, I found my niche. Or maybe we'll see it on a web page. Foster to Adopt says, we all need to know that we are wanted and that we belong. So let me ask you, what's the difference between being needed and being wanted? You can actually answer. Tyler, what's the difference between being needed and being wanted?
I guess the level of service that you provide is, that's an interesting thought. Plenty of people can be wanted, but are you a necessity?
That's something that we usually look at it this direction. When you are wanted, or when you are needed, it has two elements to it. Number one, you're of benefit to someone else. And two, it has a deadline. And you might have heard the term, what have you done for me lately? And that's from a need perspective. Whereas being wanted is being accepted for who you are. Now, I went to school in Hinckley, Utah. We had an elementary school there, but when I got to the 4th grade, it closed down. And I had to be bused into Delta, Utah. And let me tell you, I was just a little bit anxious and I was just a little bit excited. I was anxious because there was going to be a bunch of new kids, there's a new school, and I was excited because there was a bunch of old friends that I was going to run into there as well. Well, we get to school and go to recess, get out there, and they have an asphalt playground. And in that asphalt playground, they have basketball standards. So Lance runs and grabs a ball. He and Jeff are out in front, and they are going to be the team captains. The rest of us lined up in line. And we lined up so that there was a little bit of space between us because, after all, you want to get a good look at that 4th grade physique. You know what I'm saying? Lance picks first, and he picks Stacy. Stacy's tall and slender. That was a good pick. And Jeff, he picks Darren. Darren's also a tall guy, so that was a good pick. And then Lance picks Vance, his twin brother. Jeff picks Troy. Lance picks Ernie. And Jeff picks somebody that I didn't know. And I'm thinking, come on, pick me. We're all thinking, come on, pick me. And then Lance picks Russ Fowles. Russ Fowles is the same size as me and 4 days younger. Jeff's got last pick for Jeff. Jeff picks, come on, Jeff, pick me. Jeff, come on, Jeff. Jeff, Oh, come on, Jeff, he picks me. All right. So we go out there and we play basketball. It's great. We're having a great time. Okay, that gets done. A couple days later, I'm ready to go out to recess, and I'm headed out, and I see my oldest friend. His name was Russell also. It was Russell Adams. And he's upset. I said, Russell, what's the matter? I never get picked for anything. And it was true. Russell was short and unathletic, and he never got picked. And that just stunned me. I never thought about the people that never got picked. I was always worried about, if I was going to get picked and how far down I was going to get picked. That was what I was worried about. And here he was worried about the fact that he never got picked. We all want to know that we're wanted. When we were standing out there with a little bit of space between us where they could get a good look, we were worried about being picked for two reasons. Number one, if you got picked, you got to play basketball. And number two, if you got picked, you were picked. You were chosen. You were selected. You were wanted. And we all want to be wanted. So, do you remember when someone let you know that you were wanted? Do you remember who it was that let you know that you were wanted? Let's flip that over. When did you let someone else know that they were wanted? And how can we let people know that we're wanted? Let them know that they're wanted. How do we do that? Actually, it's kind of easy. Ask their name. The sweetest sound to someone's ear is the sound of their own name. Ask their name, then say their name. And then engage or include them. That lets people know that they're wanted. Now, the second truth, foundational truth, is that we all want to know that our contribution is valued. How do we know that? There is a $43 billion industry for acknowledgments and recognition. Money talks. There's money there because that is what is needed. What's the difference between having your work, getting credit for your work, and knowing that your work is valued? If you get credit for your work, they might even make a little plaque and stick it up somewhere. But you get credit for your work basically that one time. But if you do work and it is valued, that lasts a long time. If they think about that work, they're thinking about you, and they're thinking about you doing that all the time. So when I was growing up, I heard this story about this logging camp. This is back in the days when they had horses that would haul out the logs from the forest. And Ed was the business owner. He owned the logging business, and he had a son named Jim. And Jim was the typical boss's kid, always bragging about things and how well he could do anything. But he needed to learn the business. And so his dad had him out there learning every aspect of the business. Well, while he was doing that, there was another fellow. He was an older guy, and his name was Franz. And Franz was a cantankerous, ornery old man. And he delighted in poking and making fun of Jim. If Jim was talking about how fast he could take the limbs off of a log, Franz was sure to point out he probably wasn't doing a very good job, and his estimation of time was off by a long ways. And he wouldn't just needle him, he would also get his goat. I mean, he was always getting the best of Jim. And Jim hated it. And as much as Jim hated it, Franz loved it. He just loved needling the boss's boy. Well, years went by, and Ed was ready to turn the business over to his son Jim. And so Jim is now the boss, and he's got one thing on his mind. He is going to even the score. He is going to fire Franz. Now, he has to line out the team. And so he's got a team of loggers over here, and he's got a team of loggers over there, and he's got another team over here. And he heads out to where Franz was because he is excited about this day. He is finally the boss. It was going to be 2 short sentences. That's all it was going to be. I'm the boss, you're fired. And so he headed off. And so he goes up over the hill. Now, there was a little bit of snow on the ground at the time. And so as he's trudging up the hill there, he's feeling it. He's got that tingle in his spine. He's feeling really good about this moment that was all his. He got up to the next hill, and he could see the men there. As a matter of fact, he could see the horses just pulling a log off of the hill there, and he knew that they were going to be warming themselves by a fire while they were waiting for that team to come back to get another log. And so while they're over there, he notices that Franz is sitting there next to the fire, and nobody's paying attention to him. He's cantankerous and ornery, and he has hardly any friends. But he's over there, and he's kind of hunched over, and he's got something in his hands. And he's got something, he keeps poking it out over the fire. And he's looking, and Jim's looking, and he's trying to figure out what's going on over there. Well, Franz continues to do that, and then he sees steam coming off of this. It's a shovel that he's holding. There's steam coming off of it. He's like, what's this he got going on over there? And then he dumps that, what he's got in the shovel, and he goes and he gets some more. Jim knows what he's got now. It's the sand. When they're working in the snow, that snow gets compacted and it's slick. If you're going up a hill with a log, it can slip sideways. It can slip sideways, and if you have a 1-ton log hit you from the side, it is going to break your bones, and indeed, at times, it might just flat out kill you. Jim knew this. Many a men had been broken, and a few had died. And so when he saw what Franz was doing, he had to stop and rethink everything. Franz was going the extra mile. He was making it safe. He was drying out the sand so that they could put it back out there, and it would give that friction so that it was less likely for those logs to slip. Well, he finished going on over there, and he says, Franz, I'm the boss now. Franz didn't even turn around. He just said, I hear you, boy. And then he turns and he looks at Jim and he says, I know why you're here. And Jim looks at him and says, I don't think you do. He says, I came over here to fire you, but after seeing what you did, how you are going the extra mile and what you're doing is saving lives, he says, Franz, I was going to fire you. He says, but I can't. Instead, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because what you're doing is saving lives. Franz's chin started to quiver. His eyes filled up with tears because in all of the years he had been logging, not once had someone said thank you. We all want to know that our contribution is valued. Has there been a time that someone has valued your contribution? Do you remember who it was that told you that what you were doing was valuable? Let's flip that one over. Is there a time when you've let somebody know that their contribution was valuable? How do we go about doing that? Well, first, notice what it is that someone's doing. Notice what their contribution is. Second, give them an appreciation. Tell them thank you. And third, specifically mention the value that comes from the work that they're doing. That's something we can do to let people know that their contribution is valued. Now, we all want to be inspired. How do we know that? Again, if we look at the motivation and inspiration speakers market, it is a $1.9 billion market. There is a lot of money to be made as a speaker in motivation and inspiration. People want to be motivated and inspired. But let me ask you this question. What's the difference between motivation and inspiration? Any ideas?
You ask hard questions.
I had to think about these things. I think of motivation as carrot and stick. For instance, let's have a race. We're going to race across the parking lot. First one there gets a root beer float, and the last one there's buying it. That's motivation. Inspiration comes from the inside. Inspiration is something that means something to you. It's something that you would do even if you weren't getting paid. I see a bunch of Rotarians here, and I have to think that there's some inspiration that's been involved. There was a naturalist, and he heard about this farmer that had an eagle that he kept in his chicken coop. And he thought, now this can't possibly be. An eagle is a noble bird. I can't imagine him being with chickens. So he sought out the farmer, and he knocks on his door. And the farmer says, yes. He says, I understand that you have an eagle in your chicken pen. And the farmer smiles. He says, yeah, I do, but he's not an eagle. He's a chicken. I'd like to see this. So they went out into his yard, and sure enough, there in the chicken coop was an eagle. And the naturalist went in and he picked up the eagle and he set him on a sturdy post. And he said, you are an eagle. You're meant to fly amongst the clouds. And the eagle looked down, saw his chicken friends, and hopped down and started to scratch and peck amongst the chickens. Farmer says, I told you he was a chicken. Naturalist says, no, he's an eagle. Do you have a ladder? I would like to climb to the top of your barn, if I may. The farmer got a ladder and he set it up against the barn. The naturalist took off his coat, put it over the eagle, and he carried it to the top of the barn. He got out there and he took off the coat and he held up the eagle. And he said, you are an eagle. You were meant to fly amongst the clouds. And the eagle spread out his wings and he soared right down into the chicken pen and started pecking and scratching amongst the chickens. As the naturalist came down, the farmer says, I told you he's a chicken. And the naturalist said, I'd like just one more chance. Can I come by tomorrow morning and try just one more time? And the farmer says, suit yourself. Next morning he shows up and he's got a bag. He takes the bag and he puts it over the eagle, grabs the eagle and sticks him in his car. They drive to the nearest mountain. And there, he gets the eagle out and climbs to the top of the mountain. By now, the sun is about halfway in the sky. And he takes that bag off of that eagle, and he takes his head, and he points it towards the sun. And he says to him, you are an eagle. You were meant to fly amongst the clouds. And he held the eagle up. And the eagle started shuffling his feet. And he stretched out his wings and he started to flap them. And then with a loud eagle cry, he launched himself, flapping his wings, just circling higher and higher and higher till he was amongst the clouds. We all want to be inspired. Do you remember when someone has seen the potential in you? When someone has had you raise your goals, maybe even help you see a greater purpose? Who was that person? Let's flip that one over. Have you seen the potential in someone else? Have you helped them to see their potential? Have you helped them to raise their goals? Have you helped them to see a greater purpose? These are things that we can do to help inspire other people. Now, those are the three fundamental truths. We all want to know that we're wanted. We all want to know that our contributions are valued. And we all want to be inspired. As Rotarians, it's good to be with people who know that it's not all about me. People may not remember the words you say, but they'll never forget the way that you make them feel. Thank you. So this was a speech that I had to develop for one of the pathways in Toastmasters. And Toastmasters has been around since 1924. We've got about 300,000 members. There are 15,800 plus clubs. And we are a speaking and leadership organization. And we try to help people to develop leadership and speaking skills. Currently, we have 13 different pathways, and I can only tell you about a couple of them because I've been involved in a couple of them. This one was presentation mastery, this track that I was on. I'm in another one that's visionary communications. But there are a bunch of different pathways that help people learn speaking skills that will help them to develop some of the skills and get the practice that they need in speaking in front of people. And that's basically what we do with Toastmasters. Amongst all that, there's a lot of fun stuff. We have a meeting similar to yours. We start out just like you do. We start out with a club mission statement and with the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we also have a program set up where we have some speakers. And then we have extemporaneous speaking, which we call table topics. And then we have evaluations of the speeches. It's in a positive and supportive environment. So, you know, you can feel comfortable receiving feedback about your speech. Anyway, so that's what Toastmasters does for people. And there's been many a person who has joined and it's taken them 6 months because they're afraid to speak in front of people to come up and start speaking. But imagine how great they feel having overcome that obstacle which has kept them from being able to have an input and have influence that might change people's lives. And so, do you guys have any questions about Toastmasters?
Is your club local here to Spanish Fork? Or?
Spanish Fork, we meet right in this room. We meet right in this room Thursday nights at 7. I belong to another club. This is the one we were talking about that when you're not there, they'll vote you in as president. Yeah, that's up in Orem, the president of that club. So I belong to 2 different clubs, and I have really enjoyed the things that I've learned. Of course, this was just kind of one of the stepping stones. In addition to this, I have gone on and taken more instruction in public speaking as well. But any other questions?
Not really a question, but it's everyone's biggest fear, for sure. I mean, speaking. I guess some people don't have a hard time.
You know, and some of that comes as we're growing up, right?
Yep.
It either gets reinforced that we don't ever want to get up there and do that, or we have a little bit of success and we start to become a little bit more of a performer type of a person. You see that. Some people are a little bit more extrovert and some a little bit more introvert. But we can all do well with learning to enhance our public speaking. Certainly, if a Rotarian has an opportunity to share the importance of the work that you do It would be good to be able to stand up and be able to speak and make it succinct and give them a message that they will remember. And that's one of the things that's really important in public speaking, is crafting a message that they will remember, because it doesn't do any good to speak if the moment their butts leave the chairs, they've forgotten what you said. If you've been asked to speak, it's because they expect you to have a message that will stay with the audience. And so in doing so, we learn how to craft those so that they will be memorable.
So when we talked, I thought you had mentioned that there's a Rotary partnership or something.
There,
Maybe more information on
yes,
that.
as a matter of fact, the reason why I'm here is because Toastmasters has this alliance, I guess, with the Rotary Club. And I didn't know much about it, and I looked into it a little bit more. You may not have found this out, but the Rotary has a couple of pathways that Toastmasters has helped them develop so that Rotarians can take a small speaking course to help them out. And you can find that on the international website. And so that's available to you. I'm not a Rotarian, so I can't tell you if it costs anything. I did notice that they had that, and I think they've actually got 2 or 3 tracks on there. And so I'm kind of interested. I'm hoping somebody will take that and then tell me how that works out for them. It's a great opportunity to enhance your abilities in public speaking. So I hope that you'll look that up and give it a look. I'm thankful that we have this little alliance that allows me to come over and to speak with you. And you are invited to come to our Toastmasters clubs and come see what it's all about. Attend as many times as you want to. If you want to join, then we'll put you on a path and you can start developing some speeches. One of the main things is I hope that whatever it is that I had today will be of service to you. If I'm up here for me, then it doesn't work. But if I'm up here and I've said or shared something that is beneficial and helpful to you, that means that I am doing my job correctly. So anyway, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those, but I'm going to turn the mic back over to Erin.
All right, well, thank you so much, William. It was nice to meet you, and we're glad to learn more about Toastmasters and to be inspired by your speech here. Thank you so much.